us this morning to help us to celebrate a feat that I'm sure he will explain all the details about. We're hoping that all of our connections work well. We have some students here this morning to share with us, because truly all of these efforts are for our students, and we do appreciate that. I'm not going to say much this morning. I am Barbara Retzian, the superintendent here in Auburn, and I do welcome you. I would really like the time to be spent with the governor and with the students at the end. If there's time, I'll have a few remarks, but I'm going to turn it directly over to the governor, and thank you personally for helping us to move forward with technology.
Well, the announcement this morning is we are wired. 100%. As far as we can tell from checking around the country, we are the first state in the nation to have 100% of our schools and libraries on the network and on the internet. That is a real achievement. The reason we're so excited about this is what it means for these people right here. But Duke Albanese, the Commissioner of Education, was at a conference recently where another state got a big national award for being 72% connected. And Duke scratched his head and said, wait a minute, we're 100%, what gives? And that's what's happened. And it's especially exciting because it's happened fast. And you can see in 1996, we were at a 9% hookup of schools in Maine at a 56 kilobit level, and now we're at 100%. That's an extraordinary achievement, and the credit is due particularly to Bell Atlantic. Bell Atlantic entered into an unusual, groundbreaking agreement with the Maine Public Utilities Commission in 1995, wasn't it, Ed? 1995, which involved the negotiation and the moving forward with this project, and today we're celebrating its completion. What it means is that every tiny dot on this map, every school, every library is on a statewide intranet. They can hook and connect with each other directly, and they're also connected to the internet. This is a milestone, not a completion. This is a milestone toward the integration of Maine schools and libraries with the resources, the knowledge resources of the entire world. I was at a conference in Orono 2 days ago talking about high-tech, high-wage jobs. And I said that there is absolutely no question in my mind that the major obstacle to creating high-tech, high-wage jobs in Maine is education. It's also the major opportunity. We are leading the nation in 4th grade math, 8th grade science, 4th grade reading. We celebrated that for about 40 minutes. Then what I said to Duke was, what about the rest of the world? That's where we want to lead. This is an enormous step in that direction. We are barely beginning to scratch the surface of the potential of the internet. We are barely beginning to understand what it can do and the educational resources that it can provide. I have a 7-year-old. He came home from school the other night, and somehow he'd gotten interested in Stonehenge. We've got an encyclopedia in our house that's pretty out of date. It had Stonehenge in it, but it wasn't very up to date. So we went through 3 steps, 4 steps. We turned the computer on, double-clicked on Netscape, double-clicked on Alta Vista, typed in Stonehenge, and we had 110,000 entries to choose from. We printed out pictures. In 15 minutes, there was more information about Stonehenge than I thought existed. Everything from scholarly articles to maps of how the stones were laid out to theories about what it all meant. And I think there maybe also were some entries involving rock groups called Stonehenge or something. The problem that I see with the internet now is that it is so rich, it is so laden with data, that we're going to have to figure out more sophisticated ways to search and to narrow our searches, because 110,000 entries isn't very helpful. By the way, there are about 400,000 entries if you type in Harley Davidson. But this is a real milestone for Maine. The next step is training to be sure that these things don't collect dust. And I have a suggestion for training. In every high school in Maine, there are a bunch of 16-year-olds who know more about this than any of the rest of us. They can train us. They can train the teachers, with all due respect. They can make it happen. And I hope that every school system in Maine will form a little group of inside-the-walls trainers who can then turn around and open this resource to the teachers, to the staff, and to their fellow students. Peer training is as good as it gets, and I think that's the next step. So we have now the wires in place, we have the infrastructure in place, and this is such an exciting time for Maine, because our historic disadvantage has been location. That's been the problem. We were at the end of the line. We're not anymore. No school in Maine is at the end of the line, and nationally or worldwide, and the schools up in Ashland or Van Buren or down in Kittery aren't at the end of the line either. This is a democratic, with a small d, this is a democratic institution. And it will allow us to communicate among and between our schools in ways that we've never dreamed possible. Couple this with the television system that's coming online this year in the high schools, interactive, real-time, super fast, fiber optic, ATM switched television connections between Maine high schools, and we are truly leading the nation. That's the news here today. First in the nation. My goal, as I said last week, was I think we're poised in Maine for a breakthrough in education. Not just a little incremental improvement, but a qualitative leap. And my goal is that we experience that breakthrough, and then 4 or 5 years from now, or even 3 years from now, when people across the country are talking about educational rankings, they'll say, well, we're first in the nation, except for Maine, of course. I want to be so far off the chart that we're in the category with Switzerland, Luxembourg, Singapore, and Finland, not Connecticut, Minnesota, and Tennessee. And we can do it. There is no reason we can't do it. And one of the enormous tools to do that is right here. Right here. We have to figure out how to use it. Teachers are going to have to learn how to use the internet, how to use it for something other than play, for just exploring, how to access those resources. I think that's the next challenge, but it's one that we can undertake. It's one that we can do. So my job is to say that today should be a day of tremendous celebration across this state. We don't celebrate enough. And this is a real achievement. And I want to thank Ed Dinan of Bell Atlantic for his visionary leadership, and for the leadership of that company for literally linking us up. And I think in a few minutes I'm going to get to play on these machines. Ray Poulin said you didn't think he'd be able to keep me away from the mouse very long. And I'm probably going to learn something from these young people right here. So Ray, Gary's going to give us some more background. Come on up.
Well, thank you, Governor. And I think, as you mentioned, the big news here is that Maine is the first. And I think the first to approach this from so many different perspectives. Not only do we have the interactive ATM, But I want to add to this mix the fact that we have Maine Infonet that was passed as a bond issue last year, and that will navigate those resources that you said are so comprehensive to us in facilities like this, librarians getting on the internet and being able to navigate that information to add more information and even more power for every individual student, citizen of the state of Maine. So we truly are out in front on all those fronts. A couple of interesting facts about Maine libraries. You know, 91% of our public libraries serve communities of less than 10,000 in population. 70% of our libraries spend less than $10,000 a year on books. And well over 50% of our public libraries have a grand total annual budget of less than $25,000 a year. So the challenge confronting our public libraries was very basic. How could they afford these internet connections and connect their residents with global sources of information when they couldn't even afford to buy books? So this program was quite literally a godsend. And while it didn't come on down from above, it came as a result of the PUC and their hard work. The commissioners, Heather Hunt, Bill Nugent, Commissioner Tom Welch. It was their visionary perspective that from the very beginning, the philosophy was to connect every school and public library and every citizen with access to the internet, especially those who were resource poor and didn't have computers. It's important also to acknowledge what I can only describe as the wonderful corporate public consciousness and public spiritedness of Bell Atlantic in this project. They were not reluctant partners, but very willing partners from the very beginning, worked very hard on the planning for this project, and they could have just as easily, once they made those connections and plugged in those plugs, walked away from the project feeling quite satisfied with their accomplishment with some degree of justification. But instead, they contacted every one of those 1,100 sites, not only to make sure that the connections were connected and working well, that they were completely satisfied with the service received. So if I were giving awards for civic consciousness to corporations, certainly Bell Atlantic would be on the top of my list. It's through them that the project will continue to the year 2000, and hopefully they'll support us in carrying the project beyond that year. I also wanted to thank the leadership of the Maine Science and Technology Foundation, through John Pierce, who worked so hard to begin training the thousands of people throughout the state of Maine, and their monumental and comprehensive undertaking in that regard. Especially want to also thank sometime the silent partnership of the University of Maine, CAPS, and Jerry Dubé. Without their technical expertise, this project would not have been possible. And for all the independent telephone associations of Maine, represented by Reggie Palmer, I don't know if he's here this afternoon, and their hard work in this project, and Barry McCrum, representing the cable networks throughout the state of Maine, had a very, very active role in the success of this project. And finally, a special thanks to Governor King. He sets the tone, you know, and the leadership in advancing technology objectives. And without that support, without that leadership, and without that atmosphere of support, we'd not have the project and the successful project that we have today. Finally, I just don't want to lose the significance of what's happened here in Maine. There is no other state in this country that has every single public library, every single public school connected to a single network of 1,100 sites. That's a tremendous, a stupendous achievement, and I don't want to lose perspective on that importance. It's put Maine well in front of the technology curve, and I think it's given Maine an economic mobility only dreamed of a couple of years ago, and it connects every citizen has access to world information sources regardless of where they live, for their education and for their personal advancement. Finally, as Barbara pointed out, this project was less about connecting libraries, less about connecting teachers, but more about connecting people who use their libraries, citizens of the state of Maine, and students, such as you see here this afternoon, and statewide, making sure that they were connected to this wonderful world of information that we have before us today. And it's on their behalf that we celebrate this accomplishment. And I think every person in this room could stand proud that we have accomplished as much as we have. And those charts perhaps are self-explanatory, but where you can see before the project, 6% of our public libraries connected on the internet, and now probably that figure is well over 90% of all our public libraries, and that's an astounding achievement. Thanks again for the opportunity to speak.
I don't know if the governor sat down after that for fear of what I might say or might not say. I'm not sure. You want to get the full picture. First of all, I'd like to echo what Gary said. I had a whole list of people to thank. You made them all. You got the whole list, Gary. And so I would second. There are so many individual players in this who have been involved in some way or another to allow this to occur, that we couldn't possibly cover every one of the categories that need to be done. But let me see if I can just put it into perspective for a moment. The statement that I've made everywhere that I've been, and I continue to make, because I think it is a truism of this network, which is we have done the easy part. The easy part is doing the infrastructure. In spite of all the complications, it's maybe not quite so easy. From our perspective, the easy part was to get that all put together. The difficult part is now to make that network flexible, usable, and transparent within the individual classrooms across the state of Maine. These young people that are here today to demonstrate will show you how it can be used and will be used, but even they do not have a comprehension of how it can be used 3 years from now. The potential for classroom opportunity is unlimited, or I should say limited only by our imagination and abilities, which means that the young people will play an absolute key role in pointing us in the right direction. I remember many years ago when I put in a network system into a public high school here in the state of Maine, I was told by the computer companies that it was not possible to put that network in. I have been told on occasions by people that I have been involved with here that certain things are not possible, but they seem to be able to get them done, and I congratulate them. The independents who I have a great deal of respect for, in particular given the fact that Reggie Palmer is the one that controls my telephone at my private home, so I want to make sure I don't forget that. But all the independents that are here, the ISPs represented at the table of the advisory committee by Steve Gilbert, who is here today, who have all chipped in to make sure that all of this is a workable and a very viable way of enhancing the education of the children across the state of Maine. The challenge before us will be to see that it's done in a proper fashion. And to the teachers of the state of Maine, I would say to all of them, we have an opportunity here to do things that we've never been able to do. You will never get the amount of training that you would like to have. It never happens that way. But we will do all we can to help in that. But I will echo what the governor has said in having had that experience. Young people are great trainers and very helpful in terms of it. They do not have any built-in concerns. They just freely transport themselves about the internet and through the intranets in the state of Maine. So with all of that, and with all the thanks of everyone, I can't wait to move to the next part of it, which is the development of some kinds of video transmissions through the ATM network, which we are now piloting in the state of Maine, and which we hope will be expanded as time goes on. And the actual development of the Universal Service Fund, which many of you are aware of, which we hope will defer a lot of the telecommunications cost in the future. We wait patiently for the federal government to get us our draft applications and get those applications in to take advantage of that. So we have much going in the state of Maine, many opportunities, and I know that I stand ready to try to help in any way that we can, representing the Department of Education, to help the educators across the state of Maine take full advantage of this opportunity. So those are the things that I think are most important. But let me just kind of bring my little part of it to a closure by saying that there is a school district in mid-Maine who had nothing to do with computers whatsoever until we put a connection into them. I have now all kinds of information pertaining to how they used it. They went from zero amount of use to a point where the school board said it was extremely important after we made the connections. The children are all using it all over the place. That kind of interest, enthusiasm, student use, teacher use, community connections, that's being duplicated all across the state of Maine. Some places are further ahead than others, but it is being duplicated everywhere. It's a wonderful thing if you've been an educator all your life and you see what goes on and you see what happens to the face of the students as they get into this with such enthusiasm and such interest. So I would like to thank all of those, once again, who have been involved. But I would like, and I do take pleasure in being able to introduce Ed Dinan, who is here today, who I think did something which was magnificent from the state of Maine's point of view, and by that I mean that he put the company that he represents in a position of not hampering the effort. He put the company in a position of helping to see that all of this could be accomplished. Certainly the PUC ruled in a particular way that gave us all an opportunity. And through that, we gained the assistance from not only Bell Atlantic, but from all of the other people that we had. But if it hadn't been for Ed, I think it would have been very difficult to have accomplished this in a one-year time frame. He will tell you it was difficult probably to build the infrastructure. I just didn't see all of that part of it, that's all. So with that, it's my pleasure to introduce Ed Dinan from Bell Atlantic. Ed? Thank you.
On behalf of the partners in this process, not just Bell Atlantic, I want to say we're gratified. You know, one of the interesting things is most corporations want to do well. That means operationally, that means the opportunity to make money. But it's not often that we can also do good. And in this case, we've done very, very good. Because what we've done is we've given an opportunity to some very, very handsome and beautiful children to have an opportunity, because our opportunity in the future isn't us, I hate to say it. The opportunity and hope of the future is our children. To the extent that we can use technology to make a better place, a better opportunity for our kids, that's what's important. From the standpoint of the frame relay system that we're using for the internet, that's just the beginning. If you look at Maine in terms of having, and these are just acronyms for all of you, digital switching across the state, Sonnet rings, frame relay, ISDN, and now we're moving into ATM. We will have the technology in place in this state to be ahead of any other state in the United States of America. So we have the opportunity to not only move from where we are today, but move ahead and provide schools without walls, libraries without buildings, and an opportunity for our kids to learn in a way that they've never had an opportunity before. Thank you very much.
Now, Governor, if I can get you to sit there just for a minute while Pam Buffington, who is the consulting teacher, I'm going to read this because it's important, the consulting teacher for technology, K-12, in curriculum and instruction, and that's where the emphasis goes. And I would like to ask Pam to come up and introduce the students, and I will sit beside the governor until you say okay. Yeah. Until you say okay.
Yeah, I get the exciting thing. I get to do this every day. What I'm going to do is just introduce the 5 students and what they will be presenting, and then we'll have an opportunity to ask questions, and at that time you can let go of his leg. And, so you can ask specific questions of the students once they have done a little short informational piece. What's really exciting to me is that we use this tool to both get information, understand information, make decisions about information, and publish information. And so what you will see today when the kids present are a combination of those pieces. What I did was put together, I went and talked to some students, and they were the ones that were saying, I know what to do, I'll show them. I was in an elementary school last week, and the exciting thing for me was to be able to model some pieces, but to have all of the learning coming from the questions, the critical questions that kids were asking and also answering. that the teacher was a learner as well as the students, and for the teacher to ask those students, those 6th grade students, questions that they had the answers to, and that kind of dialogue it was really, really exciting to me to step back and let that happen. It's changing education. I very nicely walked around with my Auburn learning results because technology is intermixed and interwoven with what we're doing with the learning results at the state and local level, and it's very, very exciting for me to actually be in this kind of position. I love it. Can't tell that, but what I'll do is, first of all, this is Betsy Verrill. I sent an introduction, and we had one student who actually made a change, but this is Betsy Verrill. She's a senior here at Edward High School. She's going to talk about the use of the internet for virtual field trips. That's a very exciting thing, especially for rural places or for students who don't have the opportunities in times of transportation funding decreases and so on. There's some really exciting things in that regard. The next students will be Jesse Barber and Matt Pettengell, who are sitting over here. They're 6th grade students, and they were working on the internet, integrating science learning results. They were doing some interesting things with plate tectonics, found great resources at the national level, and they'll talk about that a little bit. Then we have, this is great. Governor set me up really great. The next one is students as information experts. We need to utilize our kids. They're ready, they're there, they're ready to move. And they have time that's a different type of time than teachers do. And so they're great resources. And Ann Martin will talk about how she's worked as a student information expert to work with teachers, to say to a teacher, we're going to be covering this unit, what do you need for information? I'll go find some resources, make some links. She's been a real resource for teachers, and they're so excited. Wow, you know, this is great. So she'll talk about what she's done in that regard. And then Matt Redding, who's on the end, he's another student expert, and he's going to talk about the information as a people resource. His father lives in Virginia, his mother lives up here. He goes there in the summer, and he stays in touch with his friends. Email, see you, see me. He's right out there doing those things, and while he's here, he shares those resources with students and staff. So the big focus should be there, and thank you very much.
Last year, I went on a trip with Ms. Buckingham and some other students and community members to Washington, D.C. to open up the AIDS quilt on the mall. And when we returned, some of the students set up a web page of the activities that we participated in when we were there. And that allows people that didn't go on the trip with us to actually experience the trip as we did. And just by clicking on our virtual field trips icon, we can then go to the actual site where we documented our trip. And people can read what we did and actually see some of the things that we did. And there's a link to different places that we visited, and one of them is the Vietnam Veterans Memorial. And it gives like an overview of what the wall is and information about it. And there's also pictures of the wall.
Now this is a link to a site in Washington.
Yeah, and this is like what we saw, and it allows people to see what we saw and experience what we saw. And you can go back and go to the other sites that we've connected to our trip, such as the quilt that we saw and other experiences that we did. And it just allows people here in Auburn to relive the trip that we took last October. And another capacity which I've used virtual field trips is looking at colleges. Sometimes it's not possible for all of us to visit all the colleges that we want to, and many of the colleges are online, and they give students the opportunity to take tours of their facilities right in their own homes. And you can see the buildings, the campuses, and it's kind of a good way to just feel out the college and see if you actually want to take the time to visit it, in, you know, later on. So it saved me a lot of time in that area too.
Okay, what we'll do is just sort of go through a brief explanation, then you can ask questions after as well.
Okay, this year in 6th grade, we are in Mrs. Sargent's 6th grade math and science class, we're working on things like continental drift, Pangea, plate tectonics, which is the movement or evolution of the Earth. And what something neat that is we don't have to choose the sites; they were chosen for us. So all Jessie has to do is click on one of the icons, and for instance, she clicked on the one that says volcanoes. Okay, and she can just click on one of these icons and it enter one of the sites that has to do with the solar system, the view of the Earth, or volcanoes, and we're not going to use volcanoes because it's out of memory. And this one is Earth and Moon Viewer, and some of the choices Jessie has here is she can take a view of the sun, the moon, night side of the Earth, latitude, longitude, and altitude, satellite and Earth orbit, or various cities around the globe. And she can click on one of these and enter that site, or not site, but picture. And she just clicked on various cities. And it's going to take a minute to go. And she can click, and right now they've got different continents and cities from those continents. And right now she's looking at Africa. And she can move as far down as it lets her and pick out a different picture.
Jessie, how did you determine one of those sites when we were at Fairview? How did you actually search them?
Well, I went to this thing called Dogpile, and it actually takes the best finds from all the search engines and gives them to you. So you don't have limited finds, and you have lots more than just something that you get from Yahoo or Excite or something.
Does it give you a narrower set of finds than Yahoo, for example?
Not really. It shows all the finds that each search engine has found. So it might have Yahoo first, and they might have found 13 things on continental drift, and then it has the next search engine, like Excite, and that might have found 3 sites. And it just keeps doing it with all of the search engines. And the very best ones are at the top. So you can find it easier.
That's what I'm looking for.
Explain how easy it is to actually get to Dogpile.
Well, I found that all you have to do to get to Dogpile is get to Netscape and then type in Dogpile here. And
all really Jessie has to do, if you didn't hear me, was erase the whole little
URL?
Yeah, URL. And all she has to do is type in Dogpile and hit return, and she will enter Dogpile, or she could type in Yahoo or Yahooligans, and she would enter one of those.
So she didn't have to type in HTTP,
No,
www.
she wouldn't have to. And for Dogpile, this is really neat because she can just start typing over the search, and when she's done, she can hit return or click on the fetch button, and it'll bring her, it'll pick the 3 as many sites as it takes.
Everybody hear the ultimate accolade, neat?
And the search results that Jessie got, 27, and I'm not going to read them all, for Pangea, which is, I don't know if you know this, but the Pangea was what the Earth was supposed to be like way back when the dinosaurs ruled the Earth. And this theory came from Alfred Wegener, a German meteorologist, and no one believed him. And 20 years later, they resurrected the idea, and now everyone believes in the Pangea theory. and there's a lot of things she could click on, but I'll let her choose one. And she just entered Pangea's scientific software or something, and I'll let her take it away.
Actually, maybe we should switch to the other people and
Yeah.
then come back around and do some more speeches. That would be great.
All right. Like Ms. Buffington said, I'm going to talk about students as resources for teachers. And this year, I'm doing an independent study with Ms. Buffington for technology, which puts me down here a lot, which puts me in a place where teachers can find me. So I've been doing a lot of work for a lot of teachers to find information for them. Like, they'll come to me and they'll either say, I have no idea what I'm doing, show me. Or they'll say, this is what I'm doing, I need you to find me things. I say, okay. And
Have you been able to help the teachers a lot? I mean, have they started to figure it out?
I've just started this year, and it's only a month into school, but I think the word's starting to get around. Like, the first thing I did was I worked for an English teacher who's doing the Scarlet Letter, and she said, I need information on the Puritans, I need information on Nathaniel Hawthorne, help me. And so I said, okay. So I went out and I did a search, and I found all different sites on the Scarlet Letter that would help her in her teaching and would help students in their research. So then I got them all down for her, and I found things like, I found a Scarlet Letter homepage all about the book. I found information on the Puritans and all the history. I found an IQ quiz on the Puritans, which nobody did very well on in this school, but know something about that, then you'll...
Now, did you create this page that we're looking at now?
Yep, I created this yesterday, something like that. But this year I'm learning how to use Adobe PageMill, and that's part of my independent study is I'm learning how to use all different types of software and learning how to use different like educational tools so I can teach teachers how to use them. And the other thing I've been doing a lot is I'm in a group and we do a lot on gender equity in school. So I did like 2 or 3 years ago, we created our own webpage, and that's sort of what got all this going. And we are the group formerly known as Cyber Girls at the moment. We're coming up with a new name. And this is our Cyber Girls page. This is the first webpage that we created when Auburn was we were just starting to get going. And this was really fun, and we still do a lot of work with this. And going out on the internet helps us find a lot of information and get other girls' views and find out statistics and things on gender equity in schools, which helps us with the research and stuff we've been doing. And the other page is 2 of the girls went further in the group and created a page called Unstifled Voices, and they read like tons and tons of books, and they reviewed them all. And so this page they created, they figured we got so much off the internet, we'll put information out for other people to get from us. So this page is out there also. And I think it's really important for teachers and students to talk to each other and share the information they've learned, because students are like the future of technology, and they're the ones who need to be teaching the teachers, because a lot of times they have more knowledge than the teachers do.
How old are you?
I'm 15.
Freshman.
I'm a freshman at EL this year.
I rest my case.
One of the main things that I use the internet for is to communicate with people across the country. My family is spread out all across the country in 4 or 5, 6 different states. I talk to my dad a lot online through email and things like that. I also, I go to visit my dad every summer. He lives in Virginia, and while I was down there, I went to an internet cafe that they had. It was around the corner, so it was pretty easy to get there, but they had some software there called See You, See Me, and that's video conferencing software. So I could get online, and one of my friends that also had the software, so I was able to look at him and talk to him both at the same time through the internet, which I couldn't have done through anything else that we had around. So it was a very, very useful tool in doing that, and it was also a lot of fun to learn about. Another thing that I use the internet for a lot is to study. When I have a long-term project, or for that matter any type of research project, I'll go to the internet the first thing, because I can usually find more resources there and more abundant resources. Just as Governor King had said, his 7th grader found 120,000 different things about Stonehenge, and that's why I use that as always the first tool that I use. I'll always go there before I ever use an encyclopedia or anything like that, because there's usually more information. And I use all kinds of search engines, but Miss Buffington had led me onto this dog pile, which is, it seems to be the best because it searches through all of them. So that's really great. So really the two main things that I use the internet for are communications and to study. Email. I talk to all of my friends. Last summer I did my part to slow down the internet and send about 50 messages each day to all my friends. It would have been kind of hard to call my friends that many times in a day, and so that's what I used it for. My friends and I also get into making web pages, and I provide a link here which is to be a beginner's guide to making your own web page. And I have the first one that I ever made, and that was for an English class that I had 2 years ago. And I can get to it straight from the Auburn School Department homepage.
Now, where is that page residing? Do you have a computer at home that's on all the time, or?
No, this is on a computer down in the main office, Chamberlain, and that's where they run all the servers.
Can you go to the top of that page?
Oh, I can go back. That's no problem.
The Auburn School Department webpage, we have a web server for projects that kids do with in curriculum, and so they go through a filtering process which is usually a discussion: is this appropriate, is this not appropriate, what can we do? And once the students have worked on their page to mutually decided web page, then we post them off at the Auburn School.
And on the big chalkboard that they have down there, I believe all the links with an arrow pointing to them, a blue arrow, it has like a schoolhouse in it, but you can't really see it on the TV. Those are all links to pages that students have helped to work with. Some where teachers and students work together, some where students did it all by themselves. The one next to Auburn Middle School is the one that I did for my 8th grade English class. And it was just a bunch of links about all the things that we've done throughout the year, and also a lot of pictures. Getting back to the CUC Me thing, we installed some software over there, but I'm not sure if we've gotten the passcode in the mail yet. We were supposed to get that from the CUC Me company, but I guess we haven't got it yet. We were hoping to show a little bit of it, but maybe we'll get that later and we'll be able to show that. But I guess that's about it. So.
Now, you feel free to come over and play, and we've also set up an email account for you if you wanted to email. Matt would show you how to get into the first class email as well. And they're yours.
You've got an account that I can use?
Yeah.
A lot longer to get ours.
Yep.
See it? It wasn't that simple. I know.